Hello and welcome everyone. It is a special Tachiai video podcast. We're here in the middle of the summer, a few weeks before Aki, and I've got myself, Bruce, associate editor of Tachiai. We've got the site's creator, Andy, on board, and of course, the amazing man who always seems to be in Japan, Josh, joining us. Say hello, everyone.
Hello.
Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa, very good. So as we sit here today, we've got just a few hours over 2 weeks to the Banzuke. For those who are kind of curious what it will look like, some of the best forecasting you can get your eyes on, sitting on the Tachiai blog that Leonard put together. The man is some kind of savant that he's able to suss all this stuff out, so go ahead and take a look at it. You guys have taken a look at it. Any thoughts or comments about some of the stuff Leonard's put together?
Glad to see Yoshikaze hanging in to Makuuchi. And it will be interesting to see Takanoiwa back up in. I mean, he's really back up in the meat of things, the way that Leonard's got it up at Maiga Share 12. So he'll be in the thick of it.
Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most amazing thing is always how accurate he usually gets it. You know, I mean, that's always the best thing. I mean, I'm with you, Andy. I think Yoshikaze hanging on there. I hope that he does well, but if not, you know, it'll be great to at least see him kind of give it his all for one more go in the top division. That's what we all want to see.
So I think the thing that really strikes me, we've got two freshmen in the likes of Yutakayama and Asanoyama in the Joy, and we've got our two strongest tadpoles, Onosho and Takakeisho, up in the Joy as well. Of course, King Tadpole Mitakeumi having just picked up his Yusho. A lot of people were not necessarily down with his Yusho. They said his Yusho should have an asterisk beside it, not mentioning any names, because of the absolute carnage in the Yokozuna and Ozeki ranks. Comments?
I'll cop to saying the asterisk because I mean it's just hard. It is really, really hard to go from 8 years of solid Hakuho showing up every tournament and blowing everybody away. All of a sudden, we've had a year where he's not showing up 100%, and Kakuryu, he's starting to, I guess, show his age as well,
Yep.
and then, of course, the big name, Kizuno Sato should be able to compete.
So we're going to get into all this here in a minute. But what do you think? Has Mitakeumi got the goods, or is this a fluke because no one showed up to read him the riot act and put him down?
I'd like to see him in there with a healthy Tochinoshin. And which one? And with a healthy Goedo. I mean, it seems like Goedo has been. We've been hoping to see that Goedo 2.0, but it seems like he has more serious issues than what we had really thought.
Yep. 2.0 can only show up for a couple days. Josh, thoughts about Mitakeumi's Yusho?
Yeah, I mean,
sweltering heat of Nagoya.
Yeah, the big cliche, isn't it, really? Everyone and their mother is coming out saying, you can only beat what's in front of you. I obviously can cop to having dropped that cliche on the site. The guys at Grand Sumo Breakdown were saying you can only beat what's in front of you. People on Sumo Forum are saying you can only beat what's in front of you. Everybody's saying you can only beat what's in front of you. That doesn't make it any less true. So, you know, he did come out. He did show up. He did a great job. Great. You know, as far as going forward, you know, clearly he's going to be up for it. There's a lot of people, especially on our site, leaving comments saying, oh, is it going to be 11 wins? Is it going to need 12 wins to get Ozeki? Yeah. You know, does the quality of it count? It's impossible right now for us to know exactly what he's going to need because, you don't know what's going to be put in front of him, right? You don't know how many of these guys at Yokozuna are going to show up. You don't know what the quality is going to be.
Well, so allow me to footnote what you're saying because it's really good commentary. Who shows up is going to be really important. If we go another tournament where there's no Yokozuna and maybe only one Ozeki, I think the desire for another Ozeki is going to be pretty damn strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's where the question for me becomes if like you said, there was a lot of desire for Tochino Shin to be new Ozeki because I think exactly for this reason. And then now he's Kataban because he wasn't able to finish his first Ozeki tournament. There will be some desire to have a healthy Sanyaku again. And when will, I guess, the pressure to have to have some more Intai be a little bit too much? When are we going to start seeing people other than Haruma Fuji get forced out of
Yep.
and into retirement?
I think it's
Because
coming before the end of the year, guys. I really
and
do.
that's I, Haruma Fuji right now would be the healthiest Sanyaku wrestler we would have.
Of course,
And so
he's taken almost an entire year off, so you can get pretty damn healthy in a year.
yeah.
Except if you're kissing a Sato. So yeah, a lot of people refer to Nagoya as Sumo Lite because the Kataban Rikishi were all out sick or injured or something was affecting them. And interestingly enough, the stats did reflect on the site. The site was down from our number of visitors and number of impressions we had in May, and there was a general feeling across the community that without the sort of big dreadnought heavy guns showing up, there wasn't nearly as much reason to watch sumo. Of course, we're all a bunch of sumo twerps, and we'll watch any two guys in a diaper throwing down. But I think in the broader public, there's a bit of a desire to see the big guys fight.
But the thing is, they need to fight healthy. So it's like I wouldn't want to have seen Kakuryu or Hakuho or Tochino Shin like lag on there and have a poor showing with 6 wins or something like that.
Yep.
So it's like when they're not healthy, I want them out. I really do like the fact that they did go Kyujo, and so we were able to get, I guess, healthy matchups because the worst thing that we could have would be to have Mitakeumi up against a 50% Hakuho. Or because then you don't get quality bouts. And so he would still get the asterisk because people would be like, oh, well, he fought Hakuho, but Hakuho was on one leg.
Freaking asterisk.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about people and their interest in sumo and the amount of traffic that comes to, our site or other sites for things like that, people are really addicted to stories, right?
Yep.
And then you look at what the stories were that drove a lot of the interest throughout the beginning of the year, and one by one, those things started to evaporate in the first week of this tournament. It was everyone's excited, and Tochinoshin's coming out. He's his first Ozeki tournament, and he's gone. And then it's Hakuho's big comeback tournament. Can he win for the first time this year? And then Hakuho pulls out. And then you've got Kakuryu. Is he going to three-peat? And then Kakuryu's out in the first week. So when you think about all the things that get people excited and all those big stories, all of a sudden, one by one, those kind of fell away. And the only thing that was left was, well, who's actually going to win it? And, like, who are they going to have to beat to win it,
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so, we're in between Bashos now. And the Jungyo is in full swing. And I have got to tip my hat to site contributor Harith. Absolutely compelling, stunning coverage day by day on what's going on in Jungyo. And frankly, I look forward to when she posts because it's really good stuff. So the tour right now, they were in Tokyo recently. Now they're swinging towards the north through Fukushima, through Tohoku region, up to Hokkaido, and then back down for Tokyo right before the start of the Basho. Any thoughts you guys have had from watching coverage of Jungyo?
It's been great to see more of the condition. And, I mean, we just mentioned Kakuryu. It's been interesting to see him fighting against Kisa no Sato basically without his left foot. He doesn't seem to have been able to really plant well on that foot, and it's information about their health and their condition that the sumo kyokai is not necessarily as open as like pro football.
Yep.
Pro football, like here in DC, I guess our big rookie just went down for the season with his MCL, but it's like
sorry. Very important. Go Bears. Go ahead.
Yes.
You'll get a lot of cheers for that one, but it's like they're very open with the with injuries, but I think that's because they've got basically a whole industry
Yep.
based on fantasy football, and so I mean the fans need to know the football player's health. But in sumo, we don't have that, and so it's more like hockey, where he's got a lower body injury, and it's not necessarily as.
And he comes out on the ice, he's missing a leg.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Josh, any comments before we start talking about Genki?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think I'll make a different football analogy, but one of the things that we've said a lot on the site is you can't read too much into the actual results of what happens during the Jungyo. And the football analogy that I would make is there's a team in England called Everton. It's not a team that I particularly like, but they won their first preseason game 22-0. That is not at all indicative of the kind of performances that the team would have in subsequent games that they're going to have this year. So when you read about someone on the Jungyo, they're doing Sanban or they're doing whatever, and they come up against a lower ranked opponent and they win 20 out of 24 bouts, or they win 10 out of 13 bouts, it's not necessarily indicative of how Genki they are.
Yep.
And actually that's a really, really good point, because what we hear from Haruth is and from a lot of the other reporting is that Mitakeumi is somebody who sandbags Keiko and doesn't take it as seriously but he's able to stay healthy. I mean, we've read articles by John Gunning where he's like, Keiko is the sport. I mean, Keiko is the reason why these guys get up in the morning, not Honbasho. And it's Chanko is the reason why anybody gets up. But it's like the good practice is really what they're there for, and so with Mitakeumi, it seems like he's kind of the bad boy because he doesn't take it. He's the Allen Iverson of the sumo world. Practice, I mean. I actually kind of empathize with him and kind of take his side, because if he can stay healthy, then he's going to win. And a lot of the other guys are unable to stay healthy because I think they get banged up in the boot camp of Keiko.
All right, so let's dive into Genki. Genki reports. So I know I caused a really surprising amount of uproar about 2 months ago when I posted a lovely graph to the site showing just how much participation of the Yokozuna and Ozeki had tapered off in sumo, and that we had been under 50% participation for a while. Of course, the last Basho did absolutely nothing to bring that trend over 50%, and Aki looks a little dicey already. So let's start at the top, because we expect the Dai Yokozuna to lead the way. So Hakuho, you already mentioned he's looking really shaky. He dropped out of Jungyo for a bit to have his knee examined. He's considering surgery. He has persistent problems with his big toes, which is the primary means by which a sumotori transmits force to clay. I know he wants to stay active until 2020 so he can do the doyo iri at the Olympics, but his age has got to be weighing on him now. Thoughts, Andy?
I don't if if he wants to do a dohyo iri at the Olympics, I don't see why he can't do that as a former Yokozuna. Um, I mean, I think that they've had Kisena Sato hanging around for over a year. Basically, Dohyo Iri has been the only real participation he had been able to do for a while.
So his
So
Doyo Erie is just, man,
Iri,
it's like he's drunk and he never cared. The guy's got no showmanship at all. I'm sorry, Kiseno Sato fans, right? His story is amazingly compelling, and I know about the struggle, but damn, that guy looks like a walrus trying to do Doyo Yuri. It's just all there is to it.
well, and the thing is, I think that that's a lofty goal for Hakuho to have, but I don't. I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure starting to build on him to start thinking about an exit. But I think he's the last one to go.
You think so?
Of the three that are there now, I think that he's got the most credentials, obviously, and the most compelling story to stay to 2020. But I don't see him necessarily lasting that long unless he can be healthy. And I know that he's mentioned how he's taking some strong painkillers for the knee, but I do want to caution that well, not caution, but note that in Japan that's not quite what
that's ibuprofen.
Exactly. Like that's not what we consider strong. What our football players are taking probably on a daily
Use
basis.
of opiates in Japan is almost unknown unless you're dying.
Yeah, it's basically from what I've read, it's banned for everybody except for those in palliative care. I mean, it's like you're dying of cancer, they will give you the opiates, and so which to me, I think is kind of laudable. I've got a bit of a, well, I have some professional athletes in my family who have struggled with some of that. So
that's a shame. All right, Josh, thoughts about Hakuho?
Yeah, I'll be a little contrary here. I'm going to give a little bit of a counterpoint. I mean, I'm, a Hakuho cheerleader. I think I came out as a Hakuho cheerleader last time we did this. Very pro Hakuho 2020. Look, first thing with Hakuho is when you see him put his mind to a goal and say this goal is very important to me, generally he accomplishes that.
Yep.
The second thing is, some people may disagree and say, oh, sumo from the first 3 days last time wasn't at the standard that you'd hold him to. But, maybe I'll be a little controversial here and say, I think if he had remained in the competition, if he hadn't had the freak injury, he slips, he falls on the dressing room floor and busts his knee, I think he would have actually pushed hard for the Yusho last time. When you look at who else was in the actual competition, when you look at who else was actually in the Basho, and I think probably, again, this is all hypothetical, but he probably could have run, based on the sumo that we were seeing the first 3 days, probably a good 12 wins. So, like I say, it's easy to forget he had such a freak injury, but even his 50% is better than most guys' 100%. But Bruce, to kind of go back to your original point, I would be absolutely surprised to see him in September, and I think that's okay.
So a couple of things that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on. First of all is the YDC Soken that's coming up just before the Basho. I think they're going to have a lot to say this time, and I think it's going to they're going to indicate what way they're going to go with their board meeting following the tournament. I've been forecasting this for a couple of months. I think they're going to outline pretty specifically to the Kyokai and to the kanban rikishi that it's time to either compete or step down. Now, whether that's how it actually happens, the NSK, of course, is in charge of all of that stuff. But I do think that they're about to try and clean house, because they have to be looking at the same statistics that got an argument started on the blog. So let's go to what I think is one of the most interesting examples of YDC behavior. Let's go to Kisena Sato. who has not competed in a full tournament since Osaka in 2017. So it will essentially be 18 months by the time that we start Aki. And right now, out on Jungyo, he appears to be moving pretty well. He appears to be putting forth a decent effort. But as we all know, Jungyo, show-off tournament stuff, that's not real Hanbasho. And everyone brings different sumo when they're in the Kokugi-kan. We'll start with Josh this time. Josh, what do you think about Kisano Sato?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll reiterate an earlier point, which is, we always say, hey, don't read too much into the results or the performances of the Jungyo. And I think that that's where a lot of the coverage that Haruth does that is kind of around the results and around the performances and really gives you that insight into what's going on and what people are saying and what people are doing and they're posting. That's really important because it gives us those additional clues that the results don't always bear out. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, it's important not to read too much into like, oh, he showed up and he beat a bunch of people. But, because it's a fan spectacle rather than a max effort performance, as you say. I think it's clear that he's looking better than he has in some time. But at this point, predicting whether and when he's going to come back, it's almost like I don't know whether that does anything other than make us all look crazy. So I think to me, it's like I really hope that he comes back. I mean, to your point, you talk about the Soken and what the committee's going to recommend. Bruce, I mean, you said this a million times. It almost doesn't matter what point he comes back because of the situation with his muscle and the degree to which he can recuperate from that. So, I think it's for the good of the sport to have him back and competing. He still has a lot of fans. Yep. He still has a lot of enthusiasm. Let's see what he's got. Maybe now's the time.
I think, I'm sorry, Andy, we'll get to you in just a second. I think the one person on planet Earth who needs Kisano Sato the most is Takayasu, and we'll talk about him in a minute. Andy, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, I just think that now, really to reiterate what Josh said, now is probably the best time for him to come back. Hakuho's going to be gone. Kakuryu is likely not to be able to perform in the next tournament. So many of the Sanyaku are banged up that this is probably the best chance that he's got to finish a tournament. And I think that he's not going to be able to take another year off because it's not going to do any good. So I think that either this tournament or the next one, he will be participating. And if he doesn't pick up 4 or 5 wins the first week, I see him going Intai. But obviously we'll see when we see, but I think it'll have to be this tournament or the next one.
I still think it's possible that he may end up with a graceful exit strategy, but we'll see how that goes. All right, let's talk about the most enigmatic of the group, Kakuryu. Kakuryu, for the longest time, sat out tournament after tournament, came back strong, came back hard, competed when he was definitely hurt in Osaka. He has been a real pleasant surprise. But once again, he is struggling on Jungyo. And you have to wonder, do we think he can pull it together for Aki? Go ahead,
Sadly,
Andy.
No. I think his having to go up every day in Jungyo and participate has not been able to give him the rest that he probably needs to be able to, be ready for September to come around. So I don't see him participating, in week 2.
Yep.
He may start, but I don't think that he will be able to finish the next tournament.
Okay, Josh, thoughts on Kakuryu?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because a lot of folks had him nailed on for a 3-peat last time.
Yep.
So when you look at him now,
yeah.
look at him.
Go ahead, Andy. No, I mean, Josh, continue. Andy was confessing that he had 3-peat written on his face.
It's kind of tough to know what you're going to get sometimes with him. As you say, he's enigmatic because his sumo in general is normally very reactive, right? And so, maybe the exception to that is the time he shows up with his busted hand. He grabs Chiyotairu by the pink mawashi and pushes him out, right? We remember that. But by and large, we see him move backwards, and then you have to ask, is that because that's his game plan, or is it because he's injured, right? And it's tough to know. Now we see him, and we're like, okay, he's clearly got a foot thing. Who knows? He's not really moving that well. So, no, I don't think he's particularly Genki. I agree. I mean, I think he should sit out the whole tournament if that's the case that he's in. And he's won 2 tournaments this year. I don't think anybody should be pushing that.
Yep. So, speaking of winning tournaments, I also took a lot of incoming heavy fire on for our next discussion point, which is Tochinoshin. Tochinoshin has done some amazing sumo this year, but leading up to his elevation to Ozeki, it was clear that the man fights in an amazing fashion when he's healthy, but his health is difficult to maintain. He's once again in an injured status. He's had problems with his toes. He's not in Jungyo right now, right? So you have to wonder, is he actually getting much in the way of training or practice? He's Kataban going into Aki, which means he's on the bubble. Thoughts about Tochinoshin? Josh, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, too, when you think about the amount of, parties and sponsor stuff and all that, he went back to Georgia and all the things that he had to go through in the lead up to that tournament, which probably made the preparation not ideal. Yeah, not really the way that he wanted to start his life as an Ozeki, I imagine. That he's probably also grateful for the spotlight to be on someone else for a minute. One thing that I thought was interesting was, during the May tournament on like the full NHK feed, Hiro Morita was saying, if you look at the state of affairs, not only with Tochinoshin in good fighting form would he be a Yokozuna candidate, but also he would be someone who actually could be the strongest Yokozuna by January.
Yep.
Now, on the form from the first half of the year, I don't think that's too far wrong. So that kind of makes what's coming up in September a really interesting tournament because he's under pressure. He needs to be as fit as possible. He needs to clear that Kataban status. And if he does that, it could give us a real clue as to whether he's going to be able to push on and make the next level. But, don't forget, this is a guy who's going to be 31 soon.
Yep.
So it's not exactly like he's got 2 years to like settle into the rank and figure out, okay, now I'm going to like make that rope run. I'm going to make that push. Yep. It's kind of now or never. Like he's got to go for it if he's going to go for it.
Yep. Andy, thoughts on Tochinoshin?
I agreed. I think that he will definitely have he definitely has the pressure on him to not only perform but also to be healthy so that he can perform and get that I guess get rid of the Kataban status. I think he will be the Genkiest Ozeki in September by virtue of the fact that he's been able to have this rest. So I do think that he will be able to clear that status, and it will really depend on how injured he is as to whether he will, I guess, as soon as he clears that Kataban, if he needs to go Kyujo and get more rest. But I'm going to be hopeful and I guess optimistic and think that when he comes back to Jungyo, he will be 100% ready and ready to go.
Let's see. Hopefully that'll be the case. Okay, so now on to the man who's really been a complete mess, and that's Takayasu. Most surprising is that he was consistent and strong before he managed to get elevated to Ozeki, which happened almost in conjunction with Kisunasato's extended Kyujo run. His lifelong training partner, for lack of a better term, Kisunasato, was a huge part in the development of his sumo to an Ozeki level, and he in development of Kisunasato to a Yokozuna level. Now that bond has been set aside for a while. Maybe it can come back, but man, he seems to be nursing a load of injuries. Andy, thoughts about Takayasu?
I'm going to have to give him, for this Jungyo at least, the new nickname of Rusty, because he seems to be just not necessarily at, like peak condition. He's definitely, I think he he definitely needs to get some mileage out of those out of his legs before he can really compete. But he got 9 wins last tournament, I think. So he's
I'm sorry, 8 with an asterisk.
oh. So yeah, he's
You know what I mean by the asterisk, right?
yeah
Yeah,
yeah
that bout with Mitakeumi that they decided not to rerun because they were
yeah
overdue for the news. Good
yeah.
job, NHK.
There were a few of those I guess controversial calls last
Yep.
tournament.
Yeah, there was a
Um,
lot of referee action, judge action that made you just go, all right, guys.
well, and usually the Shinpon are quick to right things, but last
Not
tournament
this
was a little
time.
bit
The heat was
nah.
getting to everyone. All right, Josh,
Yeah.
thoughts about Takayasu?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to when he was promoted, and obviously, as most people know, he's never going to be in a position to fight Kisano Sato because they're in the same stable. But I
Yep.
think there were those of us who are like, wow, these guys are like really, they're really going for it. They're they're fan favorites. They're really developing. Maybe there will be a basho where the two of them will be tied, and it'll be the last day they'll go to a playoff. They'll have to fight each other. Oh my, they're the new heroes. It's amazing. And then, as you say, Bruce, it's really been anything but that over the course of the last year,
Yep.
year and a half. I think we will see him, but I don't think the results are going to be particularly good. I think it'll be another 8 or 9, maybe. I mean, I just, he's got to figure out some way to get people off balance. It doesn't start with the shoulder because he's going to be getting a shoulder replacement before too long. It's going like that.
Well, let's hope not. All right, so we're going to finish out with the sole remaining Ozeki, the man who keeps soldiering on, and I know we all give him a hard time, but he seems to get by any means necessary, and that's Goedo. So, okay, Josh, thoughts on Goedo?
Yeah, I mean, credit to him for holding on to that rank and doing whatever he needs to do that. That being said, I don't think it's a surprise that he coughed up the chance to make the Yusho race more interesting. What is really interesting, though, to me, is that when you talk about this idea of the changing of the guard, his record lately against the guys who are coming for his rank are really not good. So Mitakeumi has won 3 of his last 4 against him. This was actually the first time in 7 that he beat Takayasu. Ichinojo has an even record against him. Tochinoshin, over the last couple of years, has a slight advantage over Goedo. So when you add all that up, it puts further pressure on him, and it makes it not only harder to hold his rank as the top Ozeki, and not only makes it harder, it just eliminates any idea that he could go beyond that, but it also puts a hell of a lot of pressure on him to stay out of Kadoban, and that's something that we've seen him struggle with.
Yep. All right, Andy, Goedo thoughts?
He's a total enigma to me. I've not been able to figure out when he is healthy or when he's injured. It seems like his Zensho Yusho.
I think we lost you, Andy. Your audio cut out.
All right. Yeah, it just seems like every time he's coming back, he has a bad tournament, and when I think that he's not performing, he gets Zensho Yusho or 12 wins and does really well. So he's got me befuddled.
Yep, he is enigmatic to be sure. All right, so let's move on from our Genki report from the kanban rikishi. Well, let's have some fun, okay? So we're going to talk about ones to watch. These are people who we don't necessarily get to see on the NHK highlight reels they show the rest of the world. These are sumo tori that we think are coming up through the ranks, people that we think are going to be the stars of the future. What was that, Andy?
I just coughed.
Oh, okay. I thought you were trying to sneak a name in there sideways.
No.
All right. So hit me with 2 or 3, and we'll start with you, Andy. Who do you want to talk about?
Hakuyozan. I'm excited to see him.
Tell us about Hakuyozan, okay? Tell us
Yeah.
what his rank has been and what his sumo has been like. So each time we do this, just a moment to introduce who these people are.
All right. Hakuyozan won the Makushita Yusho last tournament. So he will be coming back up into Juryo. He was in Juryo briefly back in May, but after a 5-10 disappointing record, he fell back down in the upper ranks of Makushita. But he'll be back, and he's been looking pretty solid. So
one of the things that's interesting is the transition from Makushita into Juryo. You switch from 7 bouts in a tournament to 15. You've got to go every day, and so there's a stamina need there that once in a while trips up a rikishi. Who else did you have, Andy?
Well, I know that we've mentioned Musashi Kuni a few times.
Tell us about Musashi Kuni.
He's also he's in Makushita, and he's been doing really well. But the last tournament, I think he went 3-4. He seems to have not been able to plant really well on his left foot. So I'm a little bit concerned that
So let me put you on pause. Let me put you on pause for a minute. So Musashi Kuni is Musashi Maru's nephew, and he is in the Musashigawa stable and has been sort of the rising star. So if you saw the Grand Sumo preview just before the Nagoya tournament and they were at Musashigawa, they spoke about him a little bit. Sorry, go ahead, Andy.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Yeah, I'm hopeful that he'll be able to rise up in the in Makushita, but hopefully he'll be able to recuperate what seems to have been going on with his left foot. Hopefully he will be able to rise back up, because I know he's going to fall a couple of ranks with that Makekoshi. So.
Yep, more Hawaiians in sumo, please.
Yes.
I was just going to add to that, he's from Hawaii. It's cool to see another American rikishi in there. And 3-4, he's not going to drop so far. I mean, I actually saw him live at, I think, probably 3 tournaments this year. And I think, to your point, Andy, he's developing his strength. He's developing his techniques. I kind of mentioned in a previous post on the site, he's kind of like my draft and follow kind of guy. Like, he's not a guy like Enho. He goes out and gets 3 Yusho in a row, grabbing people by the legs and whatever. Like, he's not that kind of guy. He's got a different style of sumo. He's someone who continues to gradually improve and, keep going forward. And I think also it'd be really good to see Musashi Maru, Musashigawa have a rikishi in the professional ranks.
Yep.
And right now he's the closest guy. So he's interesting.
Yep. Okay, Josh, your turn.
All right, let's talk about a couple guys. I know we're almost in danger of talking about this guy a little too much, but can we talk about Enho for a minute? He's back.
No, we can't talk about Enho too much. Go ahead.
No.
I've set the bar really high with Waki Ichiro, so as long as you're below Waki Ichiro saturation level, you're probably fine.
And people love Waki Ichiro and people love Enho, and I think 2 really great things about Enho that make me feel a little bit better about his prospects this time. First of all, he's going back up to Juryo on merit. Last time he had like a 4-3 record at like Makushita 6 or 7 or something like that, and it was like he and Takayoshi Toshi went up because there were like no other guys that could go up because like 7 guys fell out of Juryo. So there was nobody else who really deserved it that time. I'm not trying to diminish the achievement, but that's the position that someone like Aqua is going to find himself in this time. Enho, on the other hand, has gone up. He was Makushita 2, went up 5 wins with a flourish, and if you watched him this time against upper Makushita Juryo opposition, he looked stronger. He looked more confident. He looked like a guy who gets to train with Hakuho all the time. His first match, this last tournament, started really tentative against big bad Gokushindo. He's a big guy, and Enho's a little guy, but he really grew into it, and he lands this epic throw, and it looks like he really gains confidence from that. And he wins 4 more bouts in the tournament. And, he grabbed a couple guys by the leg and threw them out. And it's kind of his signature move now. But, he's pretty exciting. So
we may get some really good little man sumo in Juryo. And maybe by, middle of next year, he might be able to make a Makuuchi run. But, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, no, I mean, I still do have this fantasy. You got, like, Enho and Ishiura, and Ura comes back. And you got, like, all these guys in the same division, and – how low? It's like limbo sumo. How low can you go? But
all right, who else you got?
I want to talk about him. I want to talk about Yago.
Yeah.
He's been in the professional ranks for a minute, but this was actually only his 8th overall tournament, and it kind of feels like he's been up in Juryo for a second. 5 of his 8 tournaments have been up in Juryo. He's someone who's starting to draw a lot of attention. He's not a guy who does a lot of throws, but this was his first tournament that he won 10 wins. He got 10 wins. You're starting to see him acclimate to the professional ranks. And he'll be in a position now where he'll be up towards the top of Juryo. Another 10 wins could see him up to Makuuchi. So he's a guy who we could be seeing make his debut in the top division sooner than later, maybe with a new name.
There we go. Andy, anyone else you want to bring up?
Actually, I kind of happy to bring up and now of course his Toyonoshima.
Yep. Okay.
Toyonoshima. I had his name and then just it dropped out of my mind for a minute. But Toyonoshima, along with Joe Koryu, are guys that it's exciting to see them coming back up into close to the professional ranks. Joe Koryu will be in the professional ranks, but Toyonoshima is right there at the top of Makushita, and so it'll be exciting to see if he can come back.
So I'll bring up one more, and you guys can react to it. Hoshoryu.
It's kind of tough to bring up Hoshoryu without talking about Naya at the same time.
Yep.
It's like these guys are kind of linked because they both have this great sumo lineage. They both made their debut at the same time. They've both been kind of around the same rank since then. I haven't been able to see too much of those guys live. Obviously there's plenty of video on YouTube and whatever. Hoshoryu's a little bit lighter, but in the bottom divisions, that pedigree and his ability will see him through. I think that both of those guys are probably 2 to 4 tournaments away from reaching like that top level of Makushita division, where you can kind of see them up against other guys who have been, just on this absolute fast track to the professional ranks, and you see what happens when they come up against guys of that kind of pedigree. So, famous last words, but I would expect them both to kind of cruise through the next tournament, and then when we get to November, get to January, we might see a little bit more of what they're made of.
Let's hope so. Andy, comments?
I'm curious about, I guess, their positioning as far as whether Ura comes back.
Yes.
And
Great
seeing whether they will be able to handle guys who, like Joe Koryu, like Toyonoshima, you start seeing them against veterans.
Yep.
And I think that it will be it'll be interesting to watch them develop.
But I'll be interested to see if we get a look at Ura in Aki. He may wait for Kyushu. Is that he should be in no rush to bring that knee back to the dojo until it's solid and ready.
Right, and so I hope that he it depends on how far I guess he's willing to go down the Banzuke before he.
I don't think it's going to matter. I really don't think it's going to matter. Right. So if you see him, God forbid, in Johnny Dad, right? Can you imagine the wreckage he's going to bring to Johnny Dad? Yeah. It's like. So one of the readers of the site has at least talked to, I'll say the name, Waki Ichiro a couple of times, and as recently as 3 months ago, he worried that by the time Ura comes back, he'll be fighting him, and he goes, "I don't want to fight that bleep." Bleep being, of course, a euphemism for what he actually said, because.
I think Waki Ichiro could be ranked, quite a bit above Ura before Ura comes back. But I think to Andy's point, something that's really interesting is that what you just articulated is exactly what we've seen with these guys like Enho, Ichiyamamoto, Murata, Wakata Kakage, who's come up from Makushita, because they've had to fight Jokoryu, they've had to fight Toyonoshima, Toyo Hibiki, and these guys. And I think Naya and Hoshoryu, I think they will have blown past Ura, but. They may get a look in against in the next few months against someone like Chiyo Otori or, Toyonoshima, Toyo Hibiki, depending where they end up. Amakaze is due for a pretty big fall. So, they could all be in that same kind of area. Okay.
Well, hey, with that, we're going to bring it to a close. Everyone, thank you very much for joining us for this, in-between Basho video podcast. Andy, thank you very much. Josh, thank you very much. And we'll talk to you guys again in a couple of weeks on Banzuke Sunday. Take care, and remember, for Sumo, it's Tachiai.